بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين. I ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to grant us the sincere intentions. I ask Allah Ta'ala to grant us in this session, both you and I, blessings by which our hearts will open up. We ask Allah to grant us a nafha which is a special blessing created by Allah, by which a person's life changes. Life changing doesn't have to be something astronomical. Sometimes it's something very subtle that a person understands and gauges onto and then continues to implement. That's what something life changing can be. It doesn't have to be, like I said, something huge that they recognize or no. Sometimes it can be something very small. Sometimes it's this small blessing, let's say, that occurs, a small realization that occurs, but it can have a big effect. We ask Allah to grant us that in this session and in any good gathering that we attend. Today, we're going to discuss, insha'Allah, as part of Sayd al-Khatir, capturing thoughts by Al-Hafiz Ibn al-Jawzi, the following sections. The section on aspiration and high ambition. Likewise, we're going to speak about the acceptance of Allah. Allah's acceptance of His noble slaves. Likewise, we're going to talk about the wise person and how he or she gives every moment its due. Likewise, we're going to speak, insha'Allah, about when you see someone being punished, then we should know that that is likely because of sins. And if they are a person who is sinful, then know that this is because of their sins that they're being punished. So let's start from the beginning, insha'Allah ta'ala. We've got up to, in this book, tabarakallah, up to speaking about this chapter. Ibn al-Jawzi, rahimahullah, said, Faslun uluwul himma, section or chapter, aspiration and high ambition. He said, من علامة كمال العقل علو الهمة والراضي بالدون دني. I'll repeat that. He said, من علامة كمال العقل علو الهمة والراضي بالدون دني. A sign of sound intellect. And so a sign of sound intellect is having high aspiration. A sign in me and you of having a sound intellect, having the proper rationale, thinking clearly, having our priorities right, evening out our treatment of our parents, giving it the priority, distributing our time in the correct way between our parents, our spouse, our children, our siblings, our friends, our acquaintances, our treatment of them at the different levels, knowing which one takes priority, and that only comes by knowing the religious knowledge, of course. A sign of sound intellect is having high aspiration. If a person aims high, if a person does not settle with less for themselves, when it comes to religiosity, when it comes to piety, when it comes to doing the good deeds, then continuing to have a high aspiration, even and especially when people around you and I don't have that. This, continuing to have that aspiration, that flame continues burning, that longing and yearning for good deeds and experiencing the pleasure of obeying Allah, while other people around us, for example, are lazy or are sinful or are enjoying drowning in the worldly sinful pleasures. Continuing to have this high aspiration and this drive, this is the sign of a very strong intellect. This is the sign of a very, very strong heart. This is the sign of being very sincere. Imagine a person in a boat, in a canoe, and they are by themselves. They're out there in the middle of the ocean, and a storm is approaching. They want to get to the shore. And so as the storm comes, they battle. They row and they row and they row. The waves, they toss them over once. They slap them to this side and they hurl them this way and they cast them upside down. But this person doesn't give up. This person has a goal in mind. They are going to reach the shore. They're going to reach Shati'ul Aman. They're going to reach safety. So they continue, and it's difficult. Of course, they're at sea, there's water in their face, the wind is blowing. Their body is fatigued. They're out of breath, but they continue. This drive, this goal that they have, its attainment in their heart is so big. So the pull or the push, if you will, the drive is so strong that they don't give up. That's because they see the goal so clearly. They've thought about it long and hard, and it is as bright as day in their mind. They have that clarity, and clarity is what we seek. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, Allahumma arina al-ashya'a kama hi. Ya Allah, show us things the way they are. Clarity is something that is priceless. Imagine clarity was sold. Clarity of mind. Knowing why what happened, happened. Not just speculation and analysis based on hindsight. No. Imagine clarity was something that could be purchased. Allahu Akbar. It would be invaluable. These people have clarity in mind. And like I said at the beginning, this doesn't come without Islamic knowledge. That's what gives you clarity on this path. Otherwise, it's a dark path. Compare two paths. A path upon which a person is walking, and it has jagged edges and curves and swerves and bends and so on, and it's nighttime. And the person doesn't have a torch, and the skies above are cloudy. There is no moon apparent, so a person edges forward. And they don't know what is ahead. They edge forward and again and forward, and perhaps they would step on a stone. Perhaps they would snap a branch under their foot. Perhaps they would move off into the bushes. Perhaps their cap gets stuck on a branch. Perhaps they fall over, but they don't know where they've fallen over, or what is above them or behind them or in front of them. Then you have another path. A path where it's daytime. The sun is up beaming down from the sky. The birds are singing. The path is clear. It's wide. It's very wide. And the person is the only one on the path, and they stride towards their destination. That's an analogy of clarity. Clarity based upon knowing the religious rules, knowing where one is wanting to end up, and what are the consequences of disobeying Allah Ta'ala. That is clarity. So, having high ambition, this is something that, subhanallah, I've seen in some people who I learned with. Subhanallah, uh, phenomenal people. You think to yourself, how do they stay so positive all the time with everything that's happened to them? How? One of them, for example, subhanallah, he he broke every bone in his body. He told me. He said, I was at home and we were doing some work at home, and a wall, a solid wall collapsed on me. A solid wall collapsed on me, and I broke every bone in my body. Subhanallah. But he was very positive. He has high ambitions. He once told me, Irfan, we're going to reach al-wilaya together. Subhanallah. Allah yaltuf. Insha'Allah he reaches al-wilaya. Insha'Allah. Insha'Allah we all reach al-wilaya. Subhanallah. But he said, there are so many things I could tell you about this person, for example, this person. But he did not give up. After breaking every bone in his body, he recovered. He recovered. This takes not only mental endurance, but physical endurance also. He has an ambition, high aspirations. Think of another person, well, subhanallah, a person that I know. He memorized the Quran in 8 months. Subhanallah. And actually memorized the Quran. Think about that. Do you know how much discipline it takes to memorize the Quran? Another person, another example is of a person who said that I want to see the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. So this person told me, I spent a year devoting myself to the worship of Allah by saying as-salah ala nabi. I exerted and exerted and exerted. And I made dua, and I made dua, and I made dua. And he believed he would see. He said, Insha'Allah, I will see. I will see. I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up. And then he saw the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. There are many examples that I could give you. Many examples of people who have this unwavering determination. And they emanate this religious positivity. And it's, one might say, contagious. You stay with people like that, and they take you to places where spiritually You, subhanallah, you. Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala has special, honorable slaves. It's something Allah created within them. People, yani, many of us would seek from their well, let's say, would seek water from their well, would pull up water, extract water from their well, extract these high aspirations from them. Ibn al-Jawzi said, من علامة كمال العقل علو الهمة. A sign of sound intellect is having high aspirations. While then he said, وَالرَّاضِي بِالدُّونِ دَنِي. While being content with mediocrity is, he said, base. And relatively speaking, you could say lowly. The person who accepts for themselves less when it comes Islamically, as in less in rank, the one who accepts less for themselves, this person is not seen in a good light. So I'm telling you now, you and I should not accept less for ourselves. It is right now, because we are alive, within our grasp. It is within your grasp to be better. It actually is. You could help change your situation. None of us are perfect. So there's always something we could do to better ourselves. Ibn al-Jawzi said, وَالرَّاضِي بِالدُّونِ, the one who accepts for himself to be less when they could have done so much more, when they have the potential to do more. Such a person is dani. This person might even be considered lowly. Like, really? You accept that for yourself? You should accept a higher rank. If a person was doing the obligations and they were staying away from the haram, we wouldn't call them lowly, of course. If this person settled with that, we would say to them, why? Why are you just settling with that? Do more. Do more. The more good you do, the better. And don't be complacent also. Ibn al-Jawzi, then he mentioned a verse of poetry that is attributed to Al-Mutanabbi, the famous poet, who said, وَلَمْ أَرَ فِي عُيُوبِ النَّاسِ عَيْبًا كَنَقْصِ الْقَادِرِينَ عَلَى التَّمَامِ. He said, what means, and I have not seen among people's flaws a flaw like those who are capable yet fall short of completion. He said, people have flaws, okay? There are deficiencies in people, some in their character, some in their demeanor, some in their manners, some in so on, controlling of emotions, some talk too much. There are many flaws. He said, but I haven't seen a flaw such as this one. What's that? The flaw that some people, many people are capable, they have the potential in them to do so much, to be complete, to be perfect, slaves of Allah, but they fall short. He said that is the biggest flaw that I have seen in people. Like I said, each and every one of us, we have this within our grasp. If we use the means, then insha'Allah, the matter will occur for us. But most people are afraid. Most people are lazy. Most people, They do not take time to think, but because they are distracted by many things. Some of them, unfortunately, distracted by hardships. Allah has busied them with hardships. But they can be patient with those hardships and gain a higher rank. Some people, however, have been busied with technology and they waste their time. Some people are busied with technology, but they do use it for the good, yes. Yes, and they get reward for that. Some people are busied with other things. Khamr, zina, wal qimar, busied with the drinking of wine, fornicating, going from woman to woman or man to man, gambling also. People are distracted. There is an obstacle in the way. Think about that path. Imagine there's that same path that we were talking about that has that clarity. It's a gorgeous summer's day. The sun is in the sky, the birds are chirping, and the path to the destination is straight and it's clear. There's greenery on either side. It's lovely. There's even the trickling of water you can hear in the nearby lake. But then, while that path is there, there are sometimes obstacles that are put in the way. Let's say there's an obstacle, there's a huge stone. Many people are able to jump over it. They have that capability, they have that potential. But then they become distracted. Instead, metaphorically speaking, they might sit on the stone. They might sit next to the stone. They might try to push the stone. You could easily go over it, or you could go around it. But they make it a point that they want to do something about the stone. The thing is, because they don't have the clarity, they want to do about the stone something that is wrong. Because they didn't get that clarity. Allah didn't grant them that tawfiq. Allah didn't create that within them. Some people, subhanallah, they are afraid because it's something that they've not experienced before. They know that they can grow, and this is the case, isn't it? Usually we grow, even religiously, we grow when we start to do things that we're afraid of, that we're anxious about. For example, many men nowadays, they are afraid of leading the prayer. There's this religious shyness that they have. They become anxious. In their household, I'm talking about, they won't lead the prayer. Why? Because they've never done it before. That's one example of why someone might be afraid. And there are other examples also. Some people are afraid of what people might say. Some people, they don't religiously go full throttle. Why? Because of what their family members might say. So that keeps them back. Sometimes it's very important for a person to realize, for some people when they're in this situation, it is important for them to realize that you can only do so much for your family. Like the old example goes, you can only take a horse to water. You cannot make it drink. What are you going to do? Dangle down from the horse's head? You're going to get on the horse and try and make it drink? It's going to cast you off into the sea. What are you going to do? You do as much as you can. After that, you get to a point where you say, I've given them the tools. I have invited them to the lessons of our teachers. Or I have sat with them myself, or I've invited one of the teachers to come to their house to teach them. They've taught them, they know the rules, and now I have to let them go. And yeah, I keep relations with them, of course, but to be too much on top of them and so on, that's not something feasible. And some people, they are, like I said, afraid of what their family members might say. So every single one of us has this potential. I heard an example once of a given by a kafir. But sometimes, even when kuffar, they are human beings. They experience what we experience in terms of life. They experience stress. They experience problems. They experience things like the car breaking down, the house on fire, debt and stealing, robbery, and everything. So he said that don't be in this situation where, on your deathbed, for example, imagine if all of your talents, all of your capabilities, and your abilities that are inherently within you. Imagine on your deathbed, they were personified. They came in the form of a person. And they said to you, why didn't you use me? You were able to do this. Why didn't you use me? If your health comes to you and says to you, you were healthy for, you had me for 30 or 40 odd years. What did you do? How did you utilize me in the way of the religion of Allah? How did you do that? What did you do with me? Did you fast? Did you pray? Did you do the optional deeds? Did you use me, health, for the sake of Allah? Your body comes, hypothetically speaking. Your body's personified. It comes to you on your deathbed and it says, did you use me in obedience to Allah? We could have done so many things together. We could have prayed so many sunnahs. We could have helped your mother and your father. We could have done this and this and this and this. Your memory comes to you on your deathbed and says to you, why didn't you use me to memorize the Quran? Why didn't you use me for such and such? Your tongue comes to you on the day, for example, at your deathbed and says, we were so eloquent, we were good together, but you used me for evil. Or even if you didn't use me for evil, you accepted less. You were afraid. You were afraid to go into unknown waters, and then the devil whispered to you and said to you, oh, don't go there. Why? You're comfortable right now. Why do you want to do something that's going to stress you out? If a person wants to grow, then they need to do what they're afraid of. They need to do what they are originally uncomfortable with, not used to. And that's usually the case for things that are rewardable. A person's not used to them. To give you an example, a person who doesn't give the adhan, a Muslim man who doesn't know how to give the adhan, it doesn't matter to us right now what your voice sounds like. Preferably, if a person has a nice sounding voice, then this is the person that should be put forward for the adhan. Or if this person is a Habashi, if he's from Ethiopia, from Abyssinia originally, then you put this person forward. النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام قال الأذان في الحبشة أو بالحبشة. We put that person forward. Otherwise, every Muslim man should know how to say the adhan. If I say now, okay, تفضل brother, say the adhan, we want to pray. And if he says, I don't know how to say the adhan. يا رجل أنت ابن مسلم. أنت مسلم. You're a Muslim. You don't know how to say the adhan. Well, okay, fine. Say the iqama. I don't know how to say the iqama. Are you okay? You should learn it, right? Oh, but then if I learn it, then I'll have to say it. طيب. Yes, this is the way. That's the point. Anyway, subhanallah. So imagine all these things, all these traits, these characteristics, these potentials, these capabilities, these talents, they come personified on your deathbed. And they say, why didn't you use us? You had us, but you used us for something else. You used us for that which was not good. Your stomach, let's say, comes to you on that day and says, what were you thinking? You just kept filling me and filling me and filling me. And you know that when I'm full, that whenever I was full, I would make you drowsy. Then you wouldn't want to pray or fast or such and such. You, 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 you failed on that front, my brother. His stomach says to him, or my sister. Another example that someone had given was that the graveyards, the graveyards are like the richest places in the world because, but lost riches because of the capabilities and the potentials that people died with and they didn't develop. We're using that Islamically. If a person was able to serve the religion of Allah for their own benefit, Al-Islamu Mansur. Al-Islam, it is to be, it is victorious, no doubt, with us or without us. Al-Islamu Mansur. But isn't it better for us that it's Mansur bina, with us? We get a share of that good. So anybody who has something good, whether it's me or you, then we need to step out of our comfort zone to use that religiously. To use that religiously. Any skill we have, then we use that religiously also. As well as earning a living, of course. We need to live, right? So Al-Mutanabbi said, وَلَمْ أَرَ فِي عُيُوبِ النَّاسِ عَيْبًا كنقص القادرين على التمام أي كانوا قادرين على التمام ولكن فشلوا إما للكسل وإما للخوف وإما للامبالاة وإما للتنعم. يعني they were able to reach perfection, but because of laziness or because of being very relaxed or because of drowning in worldly pleasures, even if they weren't sinful, and because of these things, they didn't reach. They didn't reach. It's like, to give you an example, imagine if there was a race and people are sat in different cars. Some of them are sat in very, very rudimentary standard cars, and some are sat in supercars. So there's a person sat in a Ferrari and he's waiting at the starting line. There's another person sat in a, yani, it's a Nissan Micra. I don't even know. Some of you might not know what that is. A Nissan Micra. Someone sat in a Toyota, I don't know, Avensis. Yani, subhanallah, they sat in cars that are not like the Ferrari. You might find that the one that was in the Ferrari, the one that has these capabilities, the 0 to 60 in 2 point whatever seconds, and the mountains and mountains of horsepower, but this person came last in the race. Why? Because they didn't apply themselves. They had so much potential, but they didn't apply themselves. Some people, like the analogy of the slower car, some people don't have a lot, but they cross the finish line. Some people cross the finish line as awliya. Some people just have the personal obligatory knowledge that they learned, and they are afflicted with disease, they are poor, they are homeless, and so on. That's all they have. But with the little that they have, they make it count. This is a very, very powerful notion that Ibn al-Jawzi mentioned. And that verse of poetry is something, that verse of poetry is something that every Muslim, I think, should know. قال المتنبي ولم أرى في عيوب الناس عيبا كنقص القادرين على التمام. Next, Ibn al-Jawzi said, فصل سبقت محبة الله لأحبابه. سبحان من سبقت محبته لأحبابه فمدحهم على ما وهب لهم واشترى منهم ما أعطاهم وقدم المتأخر من أوصافهم لموضع إيثارهم فباهى بهم في صومهم وأحب خلوف أفواههم. يا لها من حالة مصونة لا يقدر عليها كل طالب ولا يبلغ كنه وصفه كل خاطب ولا يبلغ كنه وصفها كل خاطب. Ibn al-Jawzi, he said in this section that the acceptance of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is eternal. And Allah eternally approved of certain slaves of Allah even before those slaves of Allah were created. Remember, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala ليس له قبل ولا بعد. Right? We don't say before and after about Allah, meaning in terms of time, because time doesn't lapse upon Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Here what this means is that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala eternally, of course, without a beginning. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala in His knowledge knew that certain slaves of His that He will create, that they will gain the acceptance of Allah. Allah is accepting of them. This was in the knowledge of Allah. Allah knew this, of course, eternally, even before those creations existed. La ilaha illallah, illallahu Muhammadur Rasulullah. Let's think about that. That's amazing. Even before these slaves of Allah love Allah, even before they acquire this love for Allah, Allah eternally knows that they are His accepted slaves, even before they were anything. قَبْلَ أَنْ يَكُونُوا شَيْئًا. Even before they were anything. Even before they existed. Glory be to the one whose acceptance of His honorable slaves is eternal. And it is only after they were created that they loved Allah. This goes to show you that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is not obligated to do anything. Allah does whatever He wills. Allah Ta'ala praised them, the slaves, for what Allah granted them. Think about that. Allah Ta'ala gave the pious people eyes and ears and tongues. Allah gave them the ability to worship Him. Allah gave them the belief for them to be Muslims. Allah gave them all these things, and then Allah praised them for having all these things, for praying, fasting, performing the obligations, doing the optional deeds. Allah gave them to them, and then Allah praised them for them. Ya Kareem. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala revealed in the Quran, إِنَّ اللَّهَ اشْتَرَى مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَنفُسَهُمْ وَأَمْوَالَهُمْ. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala gave the Muslims the deeds to do, and they did them, and they became pious slaves. And then, by the mercy of Allah, Allah admitted them into Al-Jannah. This is a good deal. Tijaratul rabiha. This is a deal in which there will be no loss. Allah Ta'ala mentioned the later qualities of the pious people before the earlier deeds that they had, out of regard for their preference. The earlier deeds that the pious people had, some of the pious people, were that they were not pious people. If you look at the examples of Ibrahim ibn Adham and others who became among the awliya, even some of the companions, many of the companions who used to worship idols, look how they became Muslims and excelled and became awliya. I like to give the example of An-Najashi, Ashama, radiyallahu anhu. He never met the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. He was alive in his time, but he never met him. King Ashama An-Najashi, Malikul Habasha. The Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam said that this man, that nobody is treated unjustly in his land. Imagine that. And at this time, this man was a kafir, a Christian. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam said, إِنَّ بِأَرْضِ الْحَبَشَةِ مَلِكًا لَا يُظْلَمُ أَحَدٌ عِنْدَهُ فَالْحَقُوا بِبِلَادِهِ. He said, indeed, in Abyssinia, Al-Habasha, there is a king. No injustice is committed in his quarters. No injustice is committed within his dominion. So go to him. And this was when the Prophet was 45 years of age, alayhi salatu wasalam. He said, go to him. And that's when the first migration to Al-Habasha occurred. Sayyiduna Uthman, radiyallahu anhu, was among those that went. This man never met the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. But then he embraced Al-Islam. And then when he died, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam was informed by revelation that he died. And he said alayhi salatu wasalam, let us pray upon your brother Ashama An-Najashi. Allahu Akbar. And he never met the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And how quickly, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, after receiving revelation or after mentioning to the companions, go to Al-Habasha, he was 45 years of age. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam lived for another 18 years. Within his life, Ashama An-Najashi embraced Al-Islam and became among the awliya and died in the life of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Imagine that. Look how quickly situations can change. We're talking about aspirations. Look how quickly people's situations can change. Abu Muslim al-Khawlani radiyallahu anhu, he was alive during the time of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. Abu Muslim from the Yemen. And Abu Muslim he embraced al-Islam. He never met the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. He embraced al-Islam and he became among the awliya. And he even, look at this, he never met the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. He became a Muslim, he became among the awliya, and he even defended the religion of al-Islam. He went up against al-Aswad al-Ansi, or Aswad al-Ansi, this man in the Yemen who claimed that he was a prophet. Abu Muslim said, the fire will be lit here and I will enter it. So he entered the fire, Abu Muslim. He went and sat inside the fire. And then he looked out and he gestured to Al-Aswad, come, تعالى, ادخل, خش جوه, تعالى, come. Al-Aswad was afraid. He was like, who is this person? What is this? This is Abu Muslim al-Khawlani. He never met the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And then you have Sayyiduna Uwais al-Qarani radiyallahu anhu, khayru tabi'een. Likewise, he never met the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, but he embraced al-Islam. And what is the case of the person who wasn't a Muslim before? Of course, the situation was not a good one. But then they embrace al-Islam and they become among the awliya. Ajib. يخلق الله ما يشاء ويختار. Those are high aspirations. Yes, they were companions and they were followers of the companions and so on. But the rahmah of Allah, iradatullah al-in'am, is not restricted to a certain group of people, meaning at one time over another time. Still, there are people who can reach high ranks today. وهو لطف من الله تبارك وتعالى. A special aid from Allah. But there need to be people who revealed the fasting to the angels, to show the angels that these are my slaves that fast, that separate themselves from food and drink and so on. So Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, as is mentioned in a hadith, revealed to the angels about the Muslims and how they fast and how they pray and so on and so forth. MashaAllah. And Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, as is mentioned in a hadith, has approved and rewarded the fasting people also. For what? For abstaining from all those matters that are prohibited, and such that the scent that comes from their mouths, the let's say smell that comes from their mouths for having not eaten or drank, أطيب عند الله من ريح المسك, meaning that the angels, they find that to be sweeter than musk. Sweeter than musk. Ibn al-Jawzi said about the pious, oh, what a noble station that is. Not every seeker can attain it. nor can every eloquent one describe its reality. Here we are speaking about the pious. Here I am speaking about the pious. And all I can do is relate to you what some of the pious have mentioned about it. And everybody knows more about their own situation than everybody else. The next section, Ibn al-Jawzi says, فصل العاقل يعطي كل لحظة حقها. العاقل يعطي كل لحظة حقها. He said, the wise person gives every moment its due. So two questions. Are you a wise person? And do you give every moment its due? He said, الواجب على العاقل أخذ العدة لرحيله فإنه لا يعلم متى يفجأه أمر ربه ولا يدري متى يستدعى. Ibn al-Jawzi said, it is incumbent upon the wise to prepare for their departure, for they do not know when their Lord's command, meaning when death, will come upon them, nor do they know when they will be summoned. This is true, we do not know when death is coming. He said, وَإِنِّي رَأَيْتُ خَلْقًا كَثِيرًا غَرَّهُمُ الشَّبَابِ وَنَسُوا فَقْدَ الْأَقْرَانِ وَأَلْهَاهُمْ طُولُ الْأَمَلِ. I have seen many people deceived by their youth, forgetful of the loss of their peers, distracted by long and lengthy hopes. وربما قال العالم المحض لنفسه أشتغل بالعلم اليوم ثم أعمل به غدا فيتساهل في الزهد بحجة الراحة ويؤخر الرجاء لتحقيق التوبة ولا يتحاشى من غيبة أو سماعها ومن كسب شبهة يأمل أن يمحوها بالورع وينسى أن الموت قد يبغت. He said, even a learned scholar may say to himself, I will busy myself with seeking knowledge today and act upon it tomorrow. So he becomes lenient in matters of asceticism, zuhud, staying away from the worldly matters. He becomes lenient in that, meaning he enjoys himself in the non-haram pleasures under the pretense of rest. He delays repentance, hoping for a better time. He shows no restraint from backbiting or listening to it. He takes earnings of a doubtful nature, like haram money or money which is doubtful, thinking that piety will wipe that doubt away. And he forgets that death can come suddenly. فالعاقل, so the wise person, the truly wise person, من أعطى كل لحظة حقها من الواجب عليه. The truly wise one is the one who gives every moment, every single moment, its due from the obligations upon him. فإن بغته الموت رؤي مستعدا وإن نال الأمل ازداد خيرا. So if death overtakes him because he took care of every single moment. If death overtakes him, he is seen prepared because he did the due. He was ready. He was always prepared for death. So if death overtakes him, he is seen prepared. And if his hopes are fulfilled, his goodness only increases. Finally, Ibn al-Jawzi said in a new section, فصل متى رأيت معاقبا فاعلم أنه لذنوب. He said, when you see someone being punished, know that it is because of sins. This is in general. Know that it is because of sins. Ibn al-Jawzi said, خطرت لي فكرة فيما يجري على كثير من العالم من المصائب الشديدة والبلايا العظيمة التي تتناهى إلى نهاية الصعوبة. He said, a thought occurred to me regarding the severe calamities and great afflictions that befall many people, trials that reach the height of difficulty and hardship. فقلت سبحان الله إن الله أكرم الأكرمين والكرم يوجب المسامحة فما وجه هذه المعاقبة. I said to myself, Subhanallah, surely Allah is most generous, and generosity denotes leniency and pardon. So what is the reason behind this punishment? We know Allah is generous and merciful, and generosity and mercy, it would denote and necessitate leniency, right? And pardon and forgiveness, right? So I wondered, why is there all this punishment? He said, فتفكرت فرأيت كثيرا من الناس في وجودهم كالعدم. Then I reflected and I realized many people live as though they do not exist at all. لا يتصفحون أدلة الوحدانية ولا ينظرون في أوامر الله تعالى ونواهيه. They do not contemplate the signs of the divine oneness. They don't think about the uniqueness of Allah. They don't think about the existence of Allah. They do not reflect on the commands and the prohibitions of Allah. بل يجرون على عادتهم بل يجرون على عاداتهم كالبهائم. But instead they follow their customs like cattle, like animals. فإن وافق الشرع مرادهم فبها وإلا فمعولهم على أغراضهم. If what they desire happens to align with the religious law, they accept it. Otherwise, they rely solely on their whims. وبعد حصول الدينار لا يبالون أمن حلال كان أم من حرام. And once the dinar finds its way to their hands, they care not whether it comes from halal or haram. وإن سهلت عليهم الصلاة فعلوها وإن لم تسهل تركوها. If prayer is easy for them, they pray. and if not, then they abandon it. وفيهم من يبارز بالذنوب العظيمة مع نوع معرفة المناهي. And among them are those who openly commit major sins, even with some knowledge of the prohibitions. وربما قويت معرفة عالم منهم وتفاقمت ذنوبه. Sometimes a scholar among them may grow in knowledge, while his sins grow even greater. Ya Latif. So it's not enough just to know, remember? You have to know and implement. فعلمت أن العقوبات وإن عظمت دون إجرامهم، فإذا وقعت عقوبة لتمحص ذنبا صاح مستغيثهم ترى هذا بأي ذنب، وينسى ما قد كان مما تتزلزل الأرض لبعضه. He said, so I came to understand, Ibn al-Jawzi said, if I read from the beginning, just once more. I'll read it in English so it flows. He said, a thought occurred to me regarding severe calamities and great afflictions that befall many people, trials that reach the height of difficulty and hardship. I thought about that. I said to myself, Subhanallah, surely Allah is most generous, and generosity would denote leniency and pardon. So what is the reason behind this, the calamities and the punishment and so on? Then I reflected and I realized many people live as though they do not exist at all, meaning they're sinful. They do not contemplate the signs of divine oneness. They don't think about the attributes of Allah and the oneness of Allah. They do not reflect on the halal and the haram, but instead they follow their customs like animals. If what they desire, okay, whether it is their sexual desire or in food or in jest, if what they desire happens to align with the religious law, like the religious law says it's permissible, then they accept it. Otherwise, if it does not align with the religious law, they rely solely on their whims. Once the dinar is in their hands, or once the dollars, or once the pounds, once the euros, once the gold is in their hands, they care not where it came from, halal or haram. If prayer is easy, they pray. So he's saying these are the reasons for the calamities. They are a punishment for the people because this is their state. Once the dinar is in their hands, they care not whether it came from halal or haram. If prayer is easy, they pray. If not, they abandon it. Among them are those who openly commit major sins, even with some knowledge of the prohibitions. Sometimes a scholar among them may grow in knowledge while his sins grow even greater. So I came to understand that no matter how great the punishment, it still falls short of matching their crimes. Then when a punishment comes to purify, let's say, or when a punishment comes to as compensation, as recompense, as a result of a sin, their cry is, "What did I do to deserve this? Oh, I wonder which sin this is a result of. What did I do wrong?" Forgetting what they had done. And that is the case for many people, the likes of which could cause the very earth. So the sin that they actually committed that they forgot, the likes of it could cause the very earth to tremble. But then they ask, what have I done? I wonder what I did. La ilaha illallah. Ajaib wa gharaib. MashaAllah. So we'll stop here today, inshallah. Um, and next Monday, inshallah, we will continue. You see, these advices of Ibn al-Jawzi, they vary. They stretch from things that he noticed in creed and things that he's going to go on to notice and say in prayer, and things like, for example, that he noticed in fasting, or things to do with marriage, things to do with men, things to do with women, things to do with children, things to do with it's vast, 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 vast. MashaAllah. We ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to protect us, and we ask Allah Ta'ala to grant us death upon Islam. We ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to grant us more knowledge, to widen our understanding and our appreciation, to make us obedient slaves. We ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to aid our family members in learning the religious knowledge. We ask Allah Ta'ala to make our hardships easy. We ask Allah Ta'ala to grant us solutions to our problems, whether that be in our family, in our health, or in our wealth. We ask Allah Ta'ala to grant us a vision of the Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam tonight and every night, for indeed Allah has power over that. We ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to grant us a grave in Al-Baqi' in Al-Madinah Al-Munawwara, near the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. We ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, or I ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to grant any reward that I received for attending this gathering to my parents and my grandparents and all of my family members, all the way back to my great 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 grandfather who embraced al-Islam. May Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala forgive in general the Muslims, the males and the females. May Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala shower upon us His endowments. May Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala grant us peace at heart. May Allah grant us tranquility. May Allah grant us joy. May Allah Ta'ala grant us jubilation at the sight of the angel of death. May Allah grant the angel of death to say to us, Assalamu alayka ya wali Allah, or Assalamu alayka ya waliyat Allah. Abshir bi ridallahi wa ridwanihi. Abshir bi jannatillahi wa na'imiha. Abshir ya abdallah, or ya amatallah. We ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to save us from the punishment of the grave. We ask Allah to save us from the torment on the day of judgment. We ask Allah that we are under the shade of the Arsh on that day when there is no shade other than the shade of the Arsh. We ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to be resurrected with the pious people. We ask Allah to be amongst those whom لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. Ameen. Ameen bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Let's stop there today. Let's say La ilaha illallah and as-salah ala nabi. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. Sorry, I've just seen some of these messages. Is this from published book? Notes. Uh, it's a book, but the book has things with it. Inshallah, what I'm doing is I'm producing my own version. We'll print it, inshallah. Um, we'll print it, inshallah, under Prosperity Publications. Inshallah, make dua. Everybody else, okay. Ameen. Barakallahu fikum. Ameen. Wa iyakum. Ameen. Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم